Alcee Hastings. He's there. Yes, right. He was impeached, and the people decided, well, we'll put him back in office. Different way. I mean, they did it. It's their judgment to have a guy who committed this actions to be over them. I think that's horrible judgment, but they're allowed to do that if they want. But the elected officials do not have to take every decision. What they do up there, they say, well, we really can't do anything about it. So every decision of the Supreme Court that we don't like, say you have to have a constitutional amendment to change it. No, you don't. Number one, you yank the jurisdiction away from them where they can't handle it. Let me give an example of how I handled this when I worked for Bob Dornan. When the Hyde Amendment was working its way through the Supreme Court, up to it was a challenge in New York, and a guy named Judge Dooling, a so-called, daily communicant, said, well, Congress cannot stop the funding of abortion. Now, mind you, the Constitution doesn't even require that we fund the military, but Dooling said we had to fund abortion. I found this a little bit bizarre. While this case was going up, I had an idea. I said, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I told Congressman Dornan, I'm going down to legislative drafting, and I'm going to draft an amendment for you to add to the Treasury, State, Justice, Commerce, and Judiciary Appropriations Act. It's one of 13 or 14 Appropriations Act. The amendment that I'm going to do is we're going to cut off all the funding for the judges, clerks, except for one each. They got about 12 clerks up there and secretaries all over the place. That's how they can meddle. They've got all these people doing this. So I went downstairs, talked to the lawyers. He looked at me like, you've got to be kidding. I said, no, Dornan's serious about this, and he asked me to do it. And, of course, I asked him to ask me to do this, to do it. So I went down, and he said, do you want this kept secret? And I knew he wanted to talk to the clerks in the Supreme Court. I said, well, this is something very touchy and delicate. I don't know if this should get out. And he says, are you sure? I'm thinking, just ask me one more time. He asked me another time. I said, all right, look, if you need to talk to people to get this perfected, go ahead and do it. I wanted him to talk to the clerks, to tell them, Dornan's going to fire you if you do this. So we had the power to do it. You know why? The Chief Justice walks over, not in a black gown, in a business suit, not this, but a business suit, sits down in front of a Congressional Appropriations Committee and says, I need so much money to run the courts. He does it. You don't picture that in your mind. You picture a building imposing, kind of on the level with the United States Congress, which before the 1930s was in the basement of the Capitol. That's where the Supreme Court was. So this case works its way up, and I told the guy, yeah, we're going to cut off their funding if they do this. Case came down. Hyde Amendment was sustained, 5-4. McRae v. Harris. Dornan and I are in a conference committee. Who comes up to us but the Congress's most lovable rogue? You know who that is. Charlie Rangel. Okay? I mean, he really is a pleasant personality. I'm just all over the place and taking this and taking that and taking advantage of everything, but really a likable guy. Charlie comes up to me and Bob Dornan, and he says, hey, you guys, you know we differ on the abortion question, correct? But I tell you what, if that court had said they're going to use our money, and I thought to myself, Charlie, this is not your money. This is taxpayer money. But he used those phrases, and I didn't want to stop him because I thought he was going to be on a roll. So he said, if they said they're going to use our money, I would have put in court stripping measures faster than you could have, Bob Dornan. So I thought to myself, my tactic worked. You cannot pit, Congress cannot lose the appropriations power to a bunch of black robes. Can't do it. Their reason for existence drops if that happens. So I want to go up there and put these power points against each other and make it so our side can't lose. Because if they lose all reason for existence. You have to be able to figure this out and juxtapose the pressure up there to force these votes that way. Now, Bob Dornan turned me loose. Well, he turned somebody loose to read 8 foot of books, but he did. I read Hines' precedents, Cannon's precedents, Dexter's precedents, about 7 or 8 feet of parliamentary procedure. I used to help him get amendments that nobody was doing for years because I went way back and read these precedents. And I had them prepared for Bob Dornan. I'm going to do the same thing in the Senate. I'm going to go over there, if I get there, read these precedents, and tie the place up in knots. And if I have to bring in with me a wagon with about 600 amendments there, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to force them to read every amendment until they buckle on this stuff because I'm not going to quit.